We just keep a certain many.
I just need to check it out.
I think it's ready to go now. It's not doing anything yet. But, yeah, if you guys, I think we can start. Yeah.
Guess we'll do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jim, you got us online? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I had to figure out how to unmute myself, but I can hear you.
No, just keep muted. You're fine. Any additions or changes to the agenda?
We're working on the amended, on the.
Oh,
Yep.
Special.
Gotcha, on the special.
Special, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. And I didn't even print that off.
There you go.
That's all I need to. We're supposed to approve of the budget, right?
Is that what we're doing first?
Under old new business, we are here to approve the 2019-2020 amended budget. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Kelly moves.
Tony second.
Kelly and Tony. All those opposed, say aye. Just need a motion to adjourn.
So move to adjourn.
Tony, is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those opposed, say aye. All right, motion carried. Meeting is adjourned. Now, we'll call the regularly scheduled board meeting to order. Are there any additions or approvals or changes to that agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to reports. Mrs. Hutley.
I don't have anything to add to my written report, unless you have any questions.
Graduation July 15th, right? Is that what I'm
No,
hearing?
July 18th, Saturday, 9 a.m. at the football field. Everyone's invited, just ordered my invitations today unless it rains or we have weather. And if that's the case, then it'll be moved inside and they'll be available to immediate family.
Okay.
To
I've had that
social
question,
distancing.
so.
We'll put something out, but I want to be dang good and sure about all the details before I do that.
I knew some
So-
schools were doing tickets, that's why I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
If it's at our football stadium, I don't think there's gonna be an issue at all.
Okay.
But if we are having to move that in at the last minute, like I said, for example, our invitations, we just said a little nicer than this, but you're invited until you're not. You know what I mean? It's like, so, and we're looking at the auditorium because we may not have gym accessibility due to the bleacher repair
Oh.
at that time. So I know we have a lot of people wondering why not the gym? Well, for a lot of reasons. First, we'd rather have it outside. Lots of schools are going to that. And secondly, I don't know that we can count on our gym, the bleachers specifically, allowing people to sit there. So our next alternative then, though it's not ideal, would be the auditorium, so.
Any other questions?
Would there be more space for people in the old gym?
I honestly don't know. We might be able to have it in the new gym. I'm just hoping it's outside because if you've ever been to a traditional graduation, we rent a stage, which is set up ahead of time. We have a sound system, which we're scheduling those people to come out, and They don't typically do outdoor, but they can. So it's gonna be a juggling act, and we just really need to pray for no rain on that morning. And obvious reasons for why it's in the morning, because I do know schools that are still having it at 2 p.m. in their football stadium in July. So,
Get a little warm.
yeah, it's not gonna be very nice. Almost guaranteed, unless we have
Free.
cold front blow in. So that, it's not ruled out, Jim. We'll do what we have to do, and may use the old gym. I'm just not sure.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver?
I have nothing to add either unless there's any questions I might be able to answer.
Do we have any promotion plans?
At this time, we do not, really haven't had a whole lot of, inquiry or, interest in that, I think. I've had some, but really not very much, and a lot of schools don't even have a junior high promotion anymore.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Nisley, you have anything to add to your report?
I do not have anything to add, but happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Moving on then to the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? None, I just need a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Second, this is Jim.
Tony and Jim. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those opposed say aye. Hearing none, motion carried, 5-0. All right, down to old and new business, facilities and bond election.
I think the things that we need to discuss about our facilities and the bond election coming up, we need to remember the why we got into this to begin with. And with the at-risk assessment and the information taken from that, how do we meet that goal of the things that need to be taken care of? And so the first piece started with initially with, we've got some aging facilities. We've got a budget issue. The aging facilities are very expensive to fix. We have roofs that are 20 years out of maintenance, or out of warranty. HVAC systems the same, that have lived their life. And those are big budget items. And if you remember, the budget cash balances have been spent down. And thank goodness that we had them. But over time, those budgets could not be continued to support the district, and especially those big money items. So with those things going down, we had to meet our particular goal, then we brought in a energy performance contract, 2 different groups to look at that. And the board had concern about the fact that, again, it was going to be a debt of possibly 15 to 20 years, or we're still going to be in those buildings. So appreciated the thoughts, but no, we're not interested at this point in doing that. The second piece that we found out was that the timing with those mills coming off. So the importance of having something to ensure that the mills that we have for bond and interest, which are anywhere from 8 to 12 mills, just depending on the budget year, we still have those available and don't lose them. Because if you lose those, and by the way, you can't take those and put them to capital outlay because you're already maxed out. You can't put them any other place because there's no other place for them to put. So those monies that are generated by those mills, if we lose them, they're very difficult to get back. And people will remember you when you raise taxes. They'll never remember you when you lower taxes. And so you try to keep that steady in that mill levy rate, which we've pretty much done. We've gone down a little actually in the mill levy because the assessed valuation has risen. so it doesn't take as much money then to produce the revenue that we have to. The other thing that we found was that, okay, why is our budget in trouble? Why are we creating this? And architecturally, 100,000 square feet, more than school districts our size, the average maintenance of that facility, not any of the roofs, not any of the HVAC, but just the monthly maintenance and annual maintenance we pay on it. To keep that 100,000 square foot at $1.84 a square foot is $184,000 to $200,000 every year more we're paying than districts our size. So that's what took our cash reserves and just took them down. And we've got to a point then that we still have the issue, we still have the problem of facilities, and you still have the budget situation, the why, and how then are you going to pay for those facilities? Or what are you going to do with them? You either create more revenue, which would mean a bond to create revenue to take care of the items that you have with problems, or you do cuts, or you do a combination of them. And the combination of could be the fact of closing buildings. So when we went to this, the bond in particular, we've got a combination. We're doing what we think is in the best interest, and our patrons have indicated that in our committee. That's in the best interest of our schools to build new and to close buildings. So both the revenue and also the cuts. So that's the area that we need to continue to talk about, and what best way for us to be able to then meet those goals. The second piece of that, just FYI, because people will say, well, you're getting new money every year. That is true. This year, we're slated to get $100,000 of new money if everything goes according to plan. And so if the budget rebounds, and because in the past, and some of you may have been on the board when this happened, is they withheld the state payments because they didn't have enough money. That's why you had to have the cash and have the cash reserve, so you could make your payments because the state wasn't able to, or they took them longer. So just some things that we've got going on. The $100,935 new state money, if we say, well, we are behind already, $184,000, so we're already behind again. And on top of that, then sped assessments are going up 14%, so $20,000 to $30,000 for the co-op. Health insurance rates went up 7.8%. It was higher than that, but said we've got to do something different, so they changed the deductible and co-pays. And again, then I would continue to say that we need to offer the flat $562 a month in payment versus we're going to pay for a single at this option or whatever it may be. Then the other things that have been happening is the new state money. We got that 3% increase, and so that's been quoted out there that people should be getting a 3% raise, and that was from commissioners of education, but they don't know what each school district has. And then the other things we've got increases are our mental health grant is going up about $3,000, our segment of it. And one of the things we're going to be talking about later, which is a great thing, of having the ability to have an SRO in our buildings for safety and security, but that comes with a price tag, even with the grant, of $15,000 a year. So in a hurry, you can see our $100,000 is gone. And again, we're still behind with the $184,000. So we need to really discuss and talk about what do we need to do to continue to meet that goals. And I know the energy performance contract may not be the answer, but it can be part of the answer because it'll take care of the envelope. So the roofs, possibly windows, just depending on what we choose to do, and HVAC systems taken care of and save us money. Okay. The second thing that possibly to look at is with our custodial situation. And we have 2 positions that are open right now at Alma Elementary, Maple Hill Elementary. July 17th is his retirement date for Dean. And so what are we going to do with those positions? We've got them advertised, starting to get a little thank goodness. But is this a time that we look to go back to what, and it's in your board packet, what we could save with that? And you could save, depending on what you chose to do and how we looked at it, we could save $3,000 a month. We could, it just depends on which option we would look at and still be able to meet the particular need. The second part of that is I have some concerns too with the COVID situation of sanitization. And not saying our people can't do it, but I'm saying if we have an outside group that is their responsibility and they've trained in that, or they train our people in that, then we have something solid as far as, look, this is something, if something ever happened, we've had it taken care of. So those are some things that I think we just need to talk about and see where you're at. Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing. Closing buildings. So if you close buildings, made a lot of sense before, right? But now we may need them for the space of social distancing.
So you want to take them one by one and?
You bet, let's.
Okay. Well, let's start then with the energy performance contracts, because that's what you started with, correct? Yep. The thoughts and discussion around energy performance contracting.
I'll go ahead. I appreciated the information that we received on it. It was really helpful, I think, and everything. But I guess I'm concerned into entering an energy performance contract because my hope is that a bond does pass in November of some sort. And then if we have an energy performance contract and we've already started some work on that towards the envelope or some of those other things, then, but if we're gonna replace that building, do you know what I mean? I feel like I'm glad that we're exploring it, and we should, because if a bond doesn't pass, then we've gotta go to plan B of some sort, and what is that plan B? And so then at that point, then I think for us, that would be a good idea. I don't know what others think about that.
I thought we talked to them a little bit. I think one of my questions after the meeting to them was, how do you work in conjunction with a bond, whatever bond we would do? Is there an option for you
Yes, it
to
is.
start working? And I think the lady told us, or told me at that point, that it was actually, if we were planning on doing a bond, they like to piggyback onto that and understand where we want to spend our dollars, what facilities we are keeping, what facilities we need the biggest help in the quickest, and then that gets to be removed from the bond dollars, correct?
Correct.
But there's some initial paperwork, initial checklists that they have to do. Her recommendation, obviously, as she's a salesperson for this company, was to not wait until the bond passes to get us involved. Our services at this point are not costing you anything. Get us involved at this stage, and we'll help you understand better where your dollars need to be spent and how we can piggyback onto your bond when the bond is here versus after the bond is here. I don't know if that makes any sense to any of us or not.
That was during the meeting.
Yeah, that was
very
it
good.
does make sense, but I guess my thought is that the bond right now as it stands is replacing all of our buildings. And we're not really keeping anything except for the newer gym and the newer part of the high school. I mean, those are that's really.
True.
And the
So-
Paxico.
So then it begs the question.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not
Absolutely.
really keeping, it's not like we're having all of these buildings that we're keeping, I guess.
Right. So you're like, well, yeah, come and give us an energy service contract quote on the new gym or whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
So then I guess my question to everyone is, do we feel confident that we have the right bond out in front of our public in order to vote on? Do we have the right plan in place for that? Because if we don't, now's probably the time to start having discussions around that. Do we change the bond that we have out there? Do we take it off the table? Do we believe that it will pass? Do we believe we have enough time to get in front of the public to inform them on what we're trying to do? I mean, we were gonna start this way back in March, right? So if the answers aren't yes to every single one of them, my belief would be that we need to go back to the drawing board and change our approach for November. If we still like that bond and we want to push that to the next calendar year, I believe we can still have one in the spring, correct? Without losing these mills. So I believe that conversation needs to happen. I believe you're exactly right. You can't, we're in a rock and a hard place on an energy service contract because we don't know what to put it on. But if we don't start having those discussions about what that bond looks like today, we're gonna run out of time to have those decisions or make some decisions. And I'm okay with that, if that's what we all decide to do. But if we're sticking behind this bond, we need to start making some preparations to get in front of the public, start having conversations about this bond, because right now it's just kind of the elephant in the room, so to speak, and nobody's talking about it, so.
Well, no, because we put it off till November. So
But-
I assumed that we were still going with the same bond in November,
Yeah.
because we agreed
We've had no,
that we were, that, yeah, that, but I guess I still feel it's the same right bond, unless for some reason we feel, given the current situation, we need something different than what we thought we needed
Well, I don't know how
8
the,
months ago.
I don't know how, I mean, COVID changes a lot, but I don't know how that would change what we need.
It doesn't change the end goal.
Right.
However, it's a bump in the road that may change our voters' opinions as to how much they can
Correct.
afford to pay currently.
Correct.
And we're asking for an outstanding amount of money that they may not be comfortable committing to. And then do we put what we feel is the best option? We feel that's our best long-term option. We've all agreed to that. I mean, most of us have agreed to that.
The board
Majority
agreed to
has
that.
said, okay. So if that is still the best option, and we go ahead and trudge forward with it, knowing the current economical environment, and it fails in November, we have, in my personal opinion, ruined that bond for any future success. It would be pretty hard pressed for any district to take the same exact bond, repackage it, and have another one, have the same bond in the spring. I don't know how all that works, so I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit. Do we feel confident enough to go into the public with what we feel is the best long-term option, even though it's a short-term glitch? Can we patch our budget together for 1 year, which is what we have to commit to this summer, to the next calendar year, right?
Correct.
Can we figure out ways in order to patch us together for a year to put us in a better, hopefully a better economic environment to get that large of a bond passed? That's my
But
question.
then we risk having the mill lower by 12 or however many mills for a year. And then
You're right.
you're really
Now
raising.
Now you're asking for a heck of a mill, a levy increase, no doubt. Agreed.
And
Yeah, it's gonna go down and up immediately, like, yeah, I mean,
I don't know that, unless we're pushing it off because we think we need a different bond and a different structure or something like that.
Yeah.
I appreciate and I do completely understand the economic environment of it and that part of it. I'm not dismissing that at all. Timing of this is not ideal.
Honestly, as you listen to Brad go through our budget, well, you hear we're getting $100,000 of new money, but I would bet as we go through and we crunch those numbers, I haven't seen anything yet, but I bet our budget is in worse shape after this, even with 100,000 new money than what we were last year. I truly believe that.
Right.
So, and all of our buses are sitting out here in the parking lot, and I drove by every one of them, and I put it on the record, I'm not proud of any of them. There is not, I drove through it twice thinking, man, I must have missed one. Well, I know we just bought a new bus. Well, I was informed a couple of them aren't sitting here. But we are a rural school, and that's our transportation devices. Not professional at all. Not professional at all. So we still have major issues to cover, even though COVID is here. And it doesn't seem like it's really going anyplace very quickly. So Kelly, you're spot on. Our needs have not changed.
Right.
We would not have came to the marketplace or to our patrons with a $24 million bond if it wasn't necessary.
Right, that's my point, and
Yeah.
I think then Brad brings up other issues that we're having. We can't hire enough custodians, we may or may not have too much space, depends on how we come on the outside of, on the other end of this, as far as how much space we need per student, but even with that though, we're spending a lot of money to just get by every year on our facilities, when we would save money on some of those things if we had updated facilities that were more efficient, that were in 2 locations, our busing would be cheaper, all of those things. We wouldn't need as many custodians as we need now. So all of those things, those type of expenses would be reduced in the same time. But I don't know, this timing is not great for us. We could have passed a bond last November, that would have been prior to all of this, maybe that would have been better.
Yeah.
But we weren't ready for November election last year, so.
Well, I have to state my knee-jerk, sorry, Tony, go ahead.
So good as like finding.
My knee-jerk reaction is that I don't want to give this bond a bad representation because we, 1, can't get in front of people, or 2, because people are misinformed because of lack of information coming out of the board or any vote yes committee or whatever, because I truly believe it is the right thing for our district, so I don't, if you told me, Justin, you're gonna have to wait to take that to market in spring, I would be okay with that, because it's the right bond for the right reasons. But if we're okay with sticking with it into November, that pretty well answers your service contract program. I mean, it's tough to commit to a service contract like this.
I guess I feel that if we are, and if things change, obviously, everything changes on a weekly basis with everything going on. But if we're having face-to-face instruction, we're having people, it will be a different environment than it was in May, where people are out, where there is better ways to communicate with individuals. It might be outside at an open event where you don't have to have everybody close together and it's smaller groups and it's more often. But there's ways to social distance with people and still have conversations. It doesn't require us to bring 100 people into the commons area on one evening.
Or we have to do it more times.
That's what I mean. You
Yeah,
have,
I know
you have
exactly
multiple,
what
you
you're
have
saying.
multiple times.
And we have avenues, there's all sign up genius, and somebody, you sign up, that one's full, here's the next one, here's the next. I mean, we may have to look at things, you're right, and we can do it, for the gym's bleachers are fixed, and we can do it in the gym. I don't think we're probably gonna squeeze it in the commons.
Or we could go outside, like, I mean, there's,
Weather permitting, absolutely, but in July, we're probably not going outside.
to 8 in the morning or at 8 at night. Yeah.
Well,
I don't,
the one last devil's advocate piece that I'll throw in is what happens in October, November, when everybody is kind of saying there could be a uprising or another COVID event, a second round or whatever. The only reason I'm asking these is because we as a board and then leadership, we have to give a little bit of direction on how do we, with no cash balances to spend down on, how do we manage our budget, which has to be set this summer? It's the chicken or the egg theory, which came first, and we don't know how much money we're gonna have because we don't know what a bond's gonna happen with, so we don't know what to do with anything else.
But in that regard, what Brad said too, which has happened in the past, and from what I'm understanding about taxes and what we've lost, we may be doing what Brad, where they hold taxes out. We may not have any.
The 100,000 new money may not be there.
I mean, that's
Well, the whole
on the
state
table too.
the whole state budget will be cut in K-12 gonna cut.
Yeah.
The whole state budget, the state budget is going to be cut, I just don't know how much and what,
If you're spending
what's
that
going
money
to be, what's going to be included.
If you're spending that money now, you would be crazy.
Right, no, we're not. So can I ask one question real quick? So Brad, so having an energy performance contract, would that have savings for this next year? That's,
It depends on when they would be able to replace stuff.
okay. That's, I
And,
guess that was my
I'm
question.
sorry, interrupt you.
I was just gonna say, I guess that was my question is, like, if we go into one now, we're really see savings in that.
That one calendar
Like
year.
this next year. Because I know part of it is, for longer term.
Fair question. And honestly, I believe that's how they get you the most savings too, is being able to amortize it out longer.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, you're
absolutely.
right.
Because it's your savings on the HVAC or whatever the system is, or.
We're gonna put it in and then we're hoping we're not gonna mess with it for another long time, so we can reap our benefits that way. We being the company that does it for us. That makes sense. Callie, you had
Yeah.
something?
So, I don't know exactly what the right answer is here, but I don't know if any of us do, but, I hesitate to put off the bond because if we put it off now and we say we're gonna wait until spring, and we end up with another COVID/flu/whatever comes next, then that's just gonna push us out too, because that's gonna start in October, or November, or December, and then we're gonna get hit, and then everything's gonna go, haywire again, and so then again, we're in a situation where it's like, well, now we can't get to the polls again, now we can't do this again, now we can't do that again, so is it beneficial to try and wait and possibly be in yet another situation like we were this spring, which then puts us in a situation where we're like, now we have to do this again? It's kind of like Groundhog's Day, I feel like, and while I don't want that to happen, I think that we need to think about that. So is it best to push it off with the understanding that if there is another event, then we're in the same boat? Or do we try now when things are opening up and we have the outdoor time and we're moving along at a better pace? And just really try to get out in front of the people as best we can now while we can. That's just something I think we need to think about is, okay, we could push it off again, but then winter comes. So, I don't know.
Jim, you got anything?
I would add, I got something. So, I guess in my mind, the question of the assessment versus the bond, I see them as kind of two different things. In terms of the assessment, I don't think it would be necessarily a terrible thing to go through and have them actually perform that. I look at worst case scenario. Worst case scenario to me is they do the assessment and we end up saying we're not going to go with your assessment. I mean, that's for us, it's a loss of $8,000, I guess. Is that right, Brad?
Yes.
Okay. And so overall, that's pretty low in my mind, considering all the other potentials that occur, including we use part of the assessment in the next bond. We use all of the assessment because for whatever reason the bond may not pass if that happens. So in my mind, there's a potential that we could leverage off the risk assessment at a very minimum to the point where it makes it worth that $8,000 investment. So that's just my opinion on the assessment piece. Is I think there's ways we can utilize that assessment, even if we decide not to go with and have them actually do enhancements. As far as the bond itself is concerned, what Callie said kind of resonated with my thoughts in that if we, for whatever reason, decide to delay the bond further into the spring of next year, we don't know, and we don't know a whole lot right now. So pushing off further isn't necessarily going to help us, I don't think, in any case. And I think a majority of the board agrees that this is our best option. This is the option that came forth from the facilities committee. There's support in that form from multiple areas. So if this is our best option, why delay it? Now that being opportunity to get in front of people, I think this is the time to do it. And don't wait, because if we wait until August or September, who knows what comes in August and September? We could be under lockdown again. So I'm I guess, proponent of continuing on with the bond as we have it scheduled. But with that being said, and at least currently, we need to be working on getting information out to the communities and getting buy-in, helping individuals within the communities realize how significant of an issue this is, and that we have to get this addressed. But with that also being said, another part to this is we need to be thinking worst case scenario in terms of if this doesn't pass, what does that mean for us going forward? What do we need to have ready, or what do we need to have at least as a secondary plan of action if we are able to go forward with this bond in event that it fails? So I think there's a lot that can be done and needs to be done fairly quickly here in order for us to have a plan of action and to have a plan to go forward if that plan of action doesn't go through.
So you bring up a good point on a plan B. Is there some discussion around spending the $8,000 to have the assessment done for that to be a fallback plan? I guess that discussion needs to be had, because if so, then now's still the time to go ahead and hire them to come in and do it, so that groundwork has already been laid. And two, I want everyone in here and anyone listening, I'm in support of that bond, and I'm in support of doing it in November. But if we don't ask these questions and play devil's advocate, we'll probably go in blind, and that's not good either. So I've had several patrons ask what our plans were, and I feel like we need to have some definite answers coming out of this meeting now. Like you said, Jim, now is the time. If we're good with this, then that needs to be stated in our minutes. It needs to be stated online that we are committing to a bond in November, do any other major change. And that's what we do, and we go that route, so.
I think COVID should, yes, we have to think about COVID and its impact right now, but I don't know that in the long term, we still have to do something for our district. Whether COVID's here or not, we still have to be forward moving with our district. And, it could be that, at some point we have to have more technology, we have to have more of this. Well, we can't afford that either. So we need to be able to move forward, and is my opinion, whether there's COVID or not, whether things look different or not, that doesn't change the fact that we still have mass needs for our students and our buildings and our people. We have to do something.
What you're saying is they're worse now than what they were.
Yes.
Our
And
needs
they're
are
gonna be
today.
worse if we just continue to push off. So,
Okay,
understand that there's economic impacts, and it's a rock and a hard spot situation.
I think the risk assessment, I think it provides us a lot of benefits in terms of, if we are able to get the bond passed, we can still utilize that risk assessment. My understanding at least was they try to work after, if a bond is passed, they try to work and implement some of those things even within the bond. So I'm trying to keep an open mind in terms of, I think that could be still very useful. If the bond doesn't pass, ever so more useful, mostly because now we still have existing buildings, and we really need to be looking at how can we create efficiencies, energy efficiencies. So, and I guess in my opinion, I think the risk assessment is a good idea. I think for the cost involved, I think we could see a lot of benefit out of it. So I would be for it. I don't know how others feel, but I'd be for a risk assessment.
does that you need voted on to spend?
It's the investment grade audit. And that's the information that they had presented, but we have to go through motion and do all sorts of stuff. So it would be, if that's what we wanted to do, we'll put it on in July as an action item.
What are we getting for $8,000? Because I feel like we do a lot of 8,000 here, 15,000 here, 12,000 here, and that's not helping. And we say the same thing, well, that's a little bit here, that's a little bit here. Here's $8,000 that we're saying we may need. Personally, we have people in place that should be able to go put more efficient light bulbs in our facilities. Or fixtures in our facilities. We have maintenance. I mean, I guess that's my only concern about spending $8,000 for us to be told by somebody what we already know. We know we have 18 facilities. We know it's HVACs. We know I'm sure we're quite well aware, we don't have, how many LEDs we probably could count in all of our facilities. We understand the wiring. You could go into the wiring. The wiring is costing us money because it's not efficient. That's my concern, I guess, about spending another $8,000.
Do we have the ability, so if I understand your concern correctly, it is on the energy performance contracting period, in your opinion, it may not be worth entering into one of those because what they're gonna tell us is, we're gonna come in, change your light bulbs, we're gonna come in, change your HVACs, and we already know they need changed, right?
Correct.
But I believe we do have the manpower to change a light bulb. I do not know that we have the manpower to put in HVACs. That would have to be hired to be done, correct?
And that's fair, I understand
So
that.
we might
Right.
get a larger benefit for them putting in the HVACs than we do the light bulbs, but the light bulbs come along in the package. Am I understanding that correct? That's what
But
I'm
we'd
trying to.
still have to pay for the HVAC, right? We'd still have to have a bond passed. They're not paying for that, are they?
No, they
No.
don't.
The
What do you
8,000 is just an assessment.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Investment
saying.
grade audit.
But we
Yeah.
don't, but let's clear that up real quick, because we don't need a bond for this energy performance contract.
No, we do not for the $8,000.
We don't need it even if they have to replace all of our HVACs.
Correct.
They pay for that and they bill us monthly.
Guaranteed the savings. In other words, you invest $500,000 and something like that, 800,000 to get everything done, and then your savings for using the new stuff pays for that. And part of the agreement, and that's why it's gonna have these motions, your savings for using the new stuff pays for that. And part of the agreement, and that's why it's gonna have these motions, that is that the company, if it doesn't save you, like $4,000 a month or whatever it is, they write you a check for the difference. They have to guarantee that savings.
They put the money in up front, they replace it, then they know, because they're going in and they're saying, know what it costs to run this HVAC unit versus what they're already spending right now. We know what it costs to run an LED bulb versus what they're doing now. So we can afford to go in and put it all in, they make a margin, pass on the savings to us, and our savings makes the payment to them.
Correct.
Thus, no new funds needed by taxpayer dollars.
Correct.
But our savings is not gonna pay them till year 2 at the earliest, I guess,
Well,
or 3.
But it starts up front, though. It's not gonna pay them, but it starts up front.
That does us no good like next year,
Well, sure it does. The savings start year 1.
but it's not gonna pay right away. Because, just the interest you're paying is gonna be, you're gonna pay, obviously it's gonna go down, but that's my concern.
I think it's a valid concern.
It's another, and that's the next thing we're gonna start, well, what was this 8,000? Now we're 10,000 here, now we're 20 over here. And
It's a valid concern.
just throwing it out
Any alternatives to spending it and having having them there ready and waiting, you have any other
Why?
ideas, or?
Why do we have to do it now and not be able to do it in November? That's my other question is, okay, well, we better do this. Why does it have to be July and not when we figure out what happens in November?
Well, I don't want to take it to talk. You have something?
No.
Okay. Well, I think my concern with that is it's already pushed to August. It can't be a July meeting discussion. It's discussion only, not action. So if we don't find out till what happens until the November election, then it goes on to December. Then they come out in January. Then, I mean, you start.
So that's your concern.
My concern is we get back into the spring, we have a bond that ended up not passing, or it did pass, and we're waiting for them. They're waiting for us to spend an additional $8,000 that could have been done in the summer in the wings. Yeah, $8,000 is a lot of money, especially in a budget that's already in the red. Your concern is extremely valid. I appreciate it. But if we keep waiting, we're going to be no different than postponing the bond. In my opinion, it'll be spring before this gets done, and then we locked in our budget losses. I mean, you smile, but there's no place to cover the budget loss. So if we don't start planning today to cover the budget loss, should things not work out in our favor, where's it going to come from? I mean,
Start making cuts.
and it's going to come at student loss. It's not going to hurt us. The taxpayer is going to see a relief in their pocketbook. No offense, they pay our bills, but our kids are going to pay bills when I'm in the elderly, and they're going to pay them for future generations. And if we don't train our kids today, if we don't invest in our kids today, what positive thing did we do as a school board, as a school district? If we cannot afford to invest in our kids, why are we even here? So if we can't afford $8,000, we have already made bad decisions to get here. No disrespect to any previous board member, because I've been here for 2 years and I'm part of those bad decisions as well. But we are discussing $8,000 on a $4 million budget. That should tell you right there how important this is and how bad of a situation we're in. Because we're
Start. 8,000 to start.
right.
So no, it's more than
It's more
8,000.
than 8,000. I'm just
So
saying.
let's get that clear.
You get
It's
down
more
to
than
8,000 though, and it's.
No, it's more, because 8,000 jumps into whatever. We don't know that, and we don't know that.
Yeah.
We don't know what the 8,000 is jumping into, and what that loan is.
Yeah.
Or how long.
What
or
do
how
you do
many
if you don't
years.
have it? We gonna start cutting then? Where do we cut? Because that's the next question I'm gonna ask, is what about building closures? I get it. We have 100,000 extra square feet, which in the COVID situation, looks like that might be a godsend. We'll be able to spread out. What are the schools that don't have it gonna do? I'll turn. What's that, Jim? Sorry?
Go ahead,
I
Jim.
said, I think you're right. I think the fact that we have that extra square footage still doesn't mean a whole lot, because if it comes to a point where there's distancing requirements, I would think there would be likely state guidance saying that we shouldn't have students in schools if you can't meet the distancing requirements, which is going to be the case for, I would say, probably a majority of schools. And I just don't see it as that great of a benefit, I guess, in the short term or long term, in terms of having that additional square footage. Schools that are the exact same size as us that may have less square footage, like you said, what are they going to do? They're going to be forced to close, and then we're going to remain open somehow because we're like barely within that threshold. I guess I don't see that as very likely happening.
I don't see it happening either without additional funding from the state to allow people to be open. It'd be hard for them to come down and tell you cannot be open because you don't have the square footage, but we're not going to provide you funding for the square footage. But where are they going to get the funding? So at the end of the day, if the energy service contract isn't right for us, and we don't shut down buildings, and the bond doesn't pass, we are again, in my personal opinion, putting all of our eggs in one basket, which is the bond passing in November. And anybody that, your own personal lives, you would set up a plan of action for if something didn't happen the way it needed to. I don't see why us as a school district should not do the same thing and have a plan to operate and secure funding to maintain the level of education that our kids deserve and that are happening around us in other districts. If we don't maintain competitiveness in that nature, we will lose, and now it's $8,000 a kid.
Mhm.
And people will take their kids elsewhere because they want a very valuable education. So, so it all goes together,
In my
but,
opinion, go ahead.
nope, I'm done.
I was just gonna say, in my opinion, I think there's two main things that I would really like to see. If we could make these conclusions in this meeting, it would be, I think, very impressive. But if we can really commit to outlining our plan of how we're going to get the information out, because I still think that's something that really needs to happen. Whether that's a door-to-door campaign, whether that's small groups, whatever that is, if we can articulate that and set a plan so that we can follow that and meet the goals that we need to meet before November. And then second, along with what you talked about, if we can successfully determine what happens if a bond doesn't pass and what we are expecting our next action to be, or our plan after that may occur, then I think we're putting ourselves in so much of a better position, not just in preparation for this bond, because we have a set plan of how we're going to get that information out, but even if the bond doesn't pass, then we have a backup of, okay, now that this has happened, we are going to go through and discuss what we do now. This is our plan for what if it didn't pass, so let's follow that plan and we start down that road of getting either a successful bond to pass, hopefully. I would think that would be the next thought process behind it, or whatever action it is at that point. So I guess my first question I really want to make sure is everybody on board with establishing a plan of getting information out for this bond we're talking about right now. Are we all in agreement that needs to happen?
Yeah,
I think so.
I mean, yeah, community has to have information. Yeah.
Yes.
We've discussed that already.
So now we got to really talk about what our limitations are, but at the same time, what can we do right now? Because in my opinion, we have to work in the now because we don't know what the future is going to bring. So right now we know there are some churches that are holding services. There's a potential that we could ask those churches to allow us to speak after those services. I don't know if we want to consider, again, starting some form of town halls where we allow a certain amount of individuals to sign up. Once it's met that requirement, they get scheduled on the next town hall. Are there other ideas that individuals have for at least getting that information out as much as we can? I mean, I'm not opposed to going out in my mask in the dark and going door to door and talking to people, and just standing outside their door or saying, however you want to do this, I just want to discuss. But we have to get it out because as of right now, I think a bit of feedback I've got since our last meeting from an individual who was at the town hall, and it was good, constructive feedback, was that it was a lot of information, and even though we gave the ability to ask questions, it was just so much information, they weren't able to fully understand, and it didn't feel like they could fully comprehend. So as many times as we can get out and try to explain in detail what we're up against, I think that further, goes towards the cause, and support the cause.
Any other communication, feedback around communication to the public, or how we get that accomplished, or what we start doing there?
I thought we were having somebody help us with that.
HTK,
Yeah, so I guess I would,
I also,
instead of us trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
because I'm not a communication guru, they've been through it several times.
and we haven't had
Would
a town
assume
hall.
that they could help us with that, and
Okay, so what you're saying is let's yield to HTK and allow them to give us feedbacks on the different options of the modes of communication to get.
I'm not against anything that Jim suggested
Right.
at all, I'm just saying that I would
Yield
like
to
to
them.
have some,
Well, that's what we
but,
discussed.
yeah,
We
yeah,
did.
we've
Yeah.
That's
discussed
one of
that.
the deals we paid for.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's use it.
Let's use
Just
that.
count. Here we
let's
go.
pay for it, yeah.
True.
Well, that's true. It's
But
gonna,
I think that's, I mean, I don't know, like,
we have to write the check.
right.
I don't know that our
We've
mode
committed.
of communication has changed at all. I think, we just need to kind of tweak it to fit the circumstance. But I mean, if we had that in line with HDK, then I feel like we should still be doing that. And if we're gonna have town halls, then we need to do that, just tweak it so we can fit it. And then we've got
I don't think anybody is against
yeah.
having
Yeah.
communication.
So can we yield to HDK, talk to them about holding smaller town hall type things? I mean, I like that. I like going to every facility and having one outside. If the weather's nice, have one outside, and here's your junior high, here's your high school, here's,
your middle school.
yeah. So, I mean, I think those are good town halls. But we should yield to the people that we did hire to help us do this.
How about the yes committee that was, or whatever, I don't
Yes.
remember what it's called, but
Yeah,
I want them, I mean, I guess I'll ask HTK, when do we involve them? Because they're important, obviously, as grassroots.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the other thing was, is I understand that town hall, but that town hall had, how many options?
Yeah.
We have
There was a
not
bunch.
had one with
Based
the
on
bond,
this.
so we have not had, and I completely understand that, Patriot, because they did get a lot of stuff thrown at them. I absolutely get it, but we have not had one,
Based on what we
Because-
decided.
we have not been able to, period.
Okay, so if I understand everybody's communication to this point, we don't feel comfortable even putting an EPC contracting option on the July meeting for an action item, even if we choose to vote it down. Because if you don't, then we talk about it again in August, or July, sorry. And if we decide, yeah, we want to, then it's gotta be put on as an action item in August. So if you put it on, if we wanna see what the next 30 days bring and we still have these discussions, it's okay for it to be on the agenda as an action item every month and we vote it down. Is that accurate? I'm asking.
Fine,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the direction you're looking for, Brad, is that accurate?
Yes,
So we will put it on the July.
I don't have a problem voting on it.
Okay,
and if there's more information, I'll try to make sure and you have the information so you know.
And I'm not against it.
me
I'm not
either.
against it, I just don't want us to spend money on it, or what are we gonna do with it between now and November, I guess. It's
I
fine.
think it was
I'm
very
not against
valuable discussion, so.
it. So, and I think,
Thank you.
Next though was buildings, correct? I'm trying to make sure I go down your punch list. So building closures, and discussion around those and the budget savings that they would or would not provide us in the immediate future. Go.
so if we close the building for this next school year, which we still can do, too, right? As an emergency closure?
Emergency, yes.
At this point still.
That's the only way, right?
Yes.
For
Right.
group procedure, okay.
I feel like so.
I guess we need to do that for immediate budget savings next year, and that's something we have to do for next year. And if we can, fit everyone into whatever other buildings are remaining. But if we're gonna do that, we need to do that quickly.
So what, I mean, what buildings are we talking about? If we're doing an emergency, let's just get the elephants out of the room, what buildings are we talking about?
What, I mean, I think the board has talked about the middle school for quite some time.
And I think I asked about that one in earlier spring too. I did, yeah, because I think there was talk about that before, but, so what would that say? Let's say if we close the middle school down. How would that help us for this upcoming year?
Let's just say half. So half of the 184,000.
How that custodial outsourcing program works with the current square footage that we're discussing and what those potential savings are and how that would work, or should we get this discussion first?
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
About the first, is that on the, can we immediately move those classrooms to other buildings without doing major work? Because I don't wanna spend a bunch of money, I don't wanna spend 90,000 to save
To eight,
90,000,
yeah.
or spend 70,000 to save 90, so we're really not getting that much. I mean, if we can pretty much move classrooms and be, and not have to spend a bunch of money, that's one decision.
So
Especially if it's not for a very long term.
I think that begs the question, so what would that look like? Fifth grades go back to elementary schools, sixth grade goes up to junior high? I mean, is that a feasible thing?
That's what we
Yeah,
Well,
so,
and in Galen's, remember in Galen's suggestion too, was if you move that line, now we're talking about Bumper and Maple Hill, I mean.
Yeah.
So that's something else to consider and all that, I mean, cause he's talking about that to help with the, sizes, class sizes, which he said would take another teacher over there.
Right, because there's a combined.
Right, because we went down to one anyway, yes, there was a combined classroom, yes.
so,
Okay.
So that's an administration question, do we have room?
We talked before and we think we do. We're still gonna have to use modulars.
Number wise, we're looking at 25, be about 25 sixth graders next year. And we're counting on 21 fifth graders coming in, so you'd be sending 21 kids back to the elementary, and you'd be moving 25 over to the junior high. If you split those into two groups, we'd be, we've already lost one modular down there, the band room, but we feel like there's room. There's two classrooms that we could probably use.
And when you say that, for not much renovation, like.
Sorry.
Right, not a tremendous amount of renovation needed to get that accomplished for the junior
Correct.
high.
Correct.
Jim, did you have something?
I was just gonna ask, could someone describe the situation that we're considering in terms of what classrooms to what buildings?
So
I can't hear some of the
you bet.
discussion as well.
The current discussion is based upon building closures and how much that would save our current operating budget for the next class, the next season or year, budget year. And the discussion is if we close the middle school, that would save us approximately $90,000 a year.
Yeah.
And we would put the fifth graders back in the elementary schools and the sixth graders would move to the junior high.
In the thought process of essentially going with, and I assume this is all under consideration, that if we don't get if the bond is not able I've tried to consider what was good, what is good about the bond, and why we got to this is the best option. And part of that was centralization. So I guess part of my question is, would it be possible for us to move have a K through 5 at the existing junior high, 6, 7, 8 at the Alma grade school where it is currently, and the high school remain the same? I don't know if there's enough square footage for a K through 5 in the junior high or not. That would be a question.
You got steps.
Yeah, I think the issue with a K through 5 at our current facility, based upon what HTK gave us feedback on, was the stairs, the slope of the stairs and the style of building is not, you're not able to use that for the younger classes. State statutes
And
require
certain
that.
grades passing on stairs too, if
Yeah.
I remember right.
So, that's a very good idea and starts to accomplish our end goal. However, the logistics of inside of that don't work legally.
Yeah. So at a minimum, pretty much we would be looking at closing the middle school probably and potentially leaving it at that because of the lack of space. Is that a fair assessment?
That's what we were discussing as of right now, yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Do we even have time to accomplish that? I mean, that's an administrative question.
We do.
Well, I meant not me.
You mean moving them back to the 5th grades back to the
Yeah, the
sure.
logistics of
Yeah.
moving classrooms into another building
Absolutely.
we won't take action tonight, so it won't be till July.
Right.
So you do 1 month to get your classrooms moved and the buildings, I mean, that seems really,
Could you do a special back or something like that? Special, could you do a special meeting?
You can do a special board meeting, but either way, I think is what she's saying. However, any of this is gonna get pretty painful pretty quick for whoever's involved.
yeah.
I mean, if we don't take any action and we don't cut our
Right.
budget, it's gonna get painful for somebody. We're just pushing the pain down the road.
Staff or anything, right?
What's that?
I would rather the pain of moving a classroom, and I hate to say that, I'm not a teacher, I'm sorry guys, but the pain of moving a classroom is a lot less than the pain of not being able to pay our bills and have staffing issues or custodial issues or, I mean,
I just meant logistically, is it
Yeah.
even, are there rooms available that are ready that can just start moving stuff and technology wise and whatever else? Are those rooms that we're moving kids to set up for a classroom, or are they now, I don't know, a storage room or some other type of use room that's not even set up for a classroom? That's what I meant.
Or a media room or, it's
Right,
media.
that's now not ready for a classroom. I mean, how quickly can that even occur? That's my question.
That I'd have to defer to.
We have to ask a question and see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other piece of it, politically, is it the right thing to do when you're trying to do a bond issue too? And making people upset, and why'd you wait, and now you're doing this, and isn't that part of the bond anyway?
Right.
You're closing buildings, so why are you doing it now?
That's true.
Just get it out there.
That's true.
But at the same time, we've got to make some decisions on what we're gonna do with our budget looming. And so, then it gets back to, we can continue to look at that, but then also the custodial outsourcing piece. That needs to be, and/or what other things.
I think that politically, closing the middle school in Paxico is the least politically damaging thing we could do as a board or a district, even prior to the bond.
I think it almost strengthens our need for the funds too, because we're in a situation where we're so in the red, we have to to close the building. So I think it could, I don't know.
I guess okay, so playing devil's advocate. So then what changed between this meeting and 2 meetings ago in our budget to now we have to do it as opposed to doing it previously?
I think we drug our feet and didn't make a good decision back then.
I don't know what I would say that.
I think for me, the bottom line is, without a bond, I just don't see the district being sustainable. So obviously our first goal would be, get this bond that we have to pass. And if that bond doesn't pass, we're looking at another bond. I think that's just, to me, I don't know how there's a way out of it without a successful bond. Without obviously having to make some very drastic and probably for a lot of people difficult decisions. So if at all possible, as a means to correct the problems that we have, I think the bond is our definitely best option. So we look at first, this is the bond we have, and we're gonna go gangbusters and do everything we can to get it to pass by getting buy-in and making sure everyone's involved. And then if for some reason it doesn't pass, then we look at, okay, it didn't pass and we still need these things. So what does that mean? Well, that means in this next bond, we're gonna have to figure out whether or not, if we close one school, what still needs to be done. What we still need HVACs, we still need roofs. So we have to include that in a future bond. And I don't see, I don't know, I don't foresee being able to do a similar bond to one that just failed if this current bond that we have fails. So it's going to have to be rehashed at, and in my opinion, as sad as it is, it likely will look more like a maintenance bond because we have problems, they need to be addressed, and we need a bond to do it. If we don't have a bond, we are literally closing schools and, forcing kids into spaces, and, we become the modular school. It's just modulars all over the place because that's the way we can operate.
Yep.
Even with another bond, if this one fails, we may be looking at modulars and adding those as some sort of a temporary remedy, but that's all it is. It's a temporary thing.
As they were 30 years ago. But yeah, that's those are the issues that we're going to be faced with, making those as actual action items in the coming months. So, not that any of those decisions are getting made tonight, but it is bringing them back up and talking about the real issues. Because we've got them. So any more discussion around building savings? Okay. Next on your punch list was
Custodial outsourcing.
custodial outsourcing. Let's have a discussion around custodial outsourcing. Thoughts, suggestions, questions, concerns?
I'll start this one off and then I'll try to keep my mouth shut. I am not opposed to the savings opportunities that we have by outsourcing. But with that being said, I think there are definitely probably individuals, custodians that we currently have that are concerned with what that means for their job, what that means for who they're reporting to, and what other individuals come in from whatever agency we hire to do that. And I share those concerns. That being said, we're having a difficult time bringing in individuals in to fill positions that we desperately need filled. So with that in mind, I'm not opposed to considering outsourcing with that we currently have who I think are doing a great job, and I haven't heard any bad things about. So with that being said, I would like to see those individuals, if at all possible, stay on through that process. But I guess that's my 2 cents on it.
Thanks, Jim. I mean, I think that any move that we make in the future, we would have, obviously, all these decisions are made with the best interest of our students, and then our employees, and then our district, and probably in about that order. So that does not mean, however, that some of these decisions that we make are not going to negatively affect some of those individuals. That being said, we have more of a need today than we did. I say more of an in-your-face need. We always need to be clean. We always need to be disinfected. We always need to be organized. We always need to be a safe environment for our kids to come to school to. And for the most part, I believe we've done a decent job of that in the sanitization side of things. However, there is room for improvement there, in my personal opinion. And it's probably due to the 100,000 square foot that we have extra that these guys and individuals are required to get over. You take some of that away and they can focus more on where kids are actually at, and that's probably a good thing. But again, I don't think I'm opposed to the buying power that a company like this would have. They're specialized in doing this, and in my personal opinion, it takes some of the legality off of our district's plate by having that put in place and having a company that is responsible for that. Now, we're responsible for making sure they're being responsible, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously, I feel like it's a good time to at least have the conversation, so. Anyone else?
I would support going with a custodial contract of some sort, and just because, given our current situation, the need is so high, and we can't be short-staffed in this area right now. And given the fact we're down 2 custodians right now anyway, and whether that we were full-staffed even with those 2 custodians, especially what will be required going into this next year, I feel like it's a good move.
My only
Can I
concern
have a
is,
clarifying question on that?
Yes,
Sorry, somebody didn't need to speak in front of you. Just a clarifying question. If we do decide to go with the outsourced vendor, what do those contracts typically look like? Are those annual, or how often are those renegotiated?
I don't know about the annual renegotiation piece of it, but if we could try to get to the 3-year, I mean, they're looking for a commitment from us too, because especially if they have training and equipment and some of the other things. And so, I guess what I understand then, I should contact them and see about them being here in July and making an action.
Let's listen to what Tony has to say
Okay.
first.
first off, I seen the
Yeah, go ahead,
back,
Tony, sorry, Tony.
first off, I seen the backpacks in action this weekend. They are awesome. I watched them plug dugouts with them. That is quite the deal.
Yeah.
Because they had a whole dugout done in a matter of minutes. That are coming. So I've seen what you're talking about now,
Right.
and it looks like a leaf blower. That's what it looks
Yeah.
like with a tank. My only concern is, and it is been brought up to me by employees, and employees that have worked for districts before that had outsourcing and left because of the outsourcing, because they no longer felt like a district employee. They like the leader in me. They like being part of the group. So the leader in me and we've had an outside discussion about this. If we can get that in there, that's great. But they like, And I think they probably should be part of the leader and me, in the groups. They like that part of it. They like being part of the program, which is our curriculum, and that was voiced to me as a major concern that if we do something like that, that company is that company. That company is here to clean. They are not anything else. So that is the concern that's been brought up to me.
Lose some of the personal touch.
Right. And ownership of the school.
Yeah.
Because you're no longer working for 329, you're working for whoever. You're collecting a paycheck. So, yes, and the ownership and the pride and all that. That's my only, and that was a concern that was brought up, so I just want to throw that out there so everybody else has heard that concern, so.
I mean, it's a valid concern, and I do believe that outsourcing of any type is probably not for every employee, and nor is it for every business or every situation. If we chose to do that, it would definitely be a change for some of them, I'm sure. Hopefully, by making some of these decisions in the future, we actually improve these decisions are designed to improve our district and to make it a better place to be and a better place to teach. And hopefully with that, then comes their enjoyment of being a part of it. But I'm a proponent of anybody that has anything to do with our district being a part of the Leader in Me program and training. And I believe that the board needs to be involved in that more as well. So we are the customer at the end of the day. We do put the requirements on how we want to be treated as a customer. And so those discussions, I believe, could be had at least.
Which is another reason I think they should be had. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I want to bring it up. I think
Yeah.
that's a standard that should be set. Per my opinion. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but that's.
I think having them here at the next meeting and having it on the agenda would be a good idea. Okay.
Stuff.
As far as your punch list goes, is there more in that? Okay.
Not right now.
All right. So then moving on, Jim, you good? All right. The next item on the agenda then is the early graduation plan.
Yeah. Elisa Barton. I'm sorry?
It's Eliza.
Eliza, I'm sorry, is Miriam Barton, who's a teacher at the high school, daughter, and they've asked to have a early graduation plan, and she's outlined the information in the packet. We'll choose to try to be a professional ballerina, and Jan's gone through it. Policy is that the board can accept that and can move forward with that. So.
And as I read the agenda, it's already been approved by Mrs. Hutley and the leadership group. They're all good with that. Any discussion or questions?
As long as administration is fine with it, they're the ones that should know, so, and have the plan. That would be though, I mean.
They have the plan also.
Yes.
Yeah, she shows,
That's what I
yeah,
thought,
but as long as you're okay with that, I mean,
Yeah.
and you
It's-
see the
it's
path that it
basically
can happen.
early graduation, and they will need to be responsible, we will need to be responsible in making sure that everything counts and is kosher with the state and those kinds of things, but the actual fact of her motivation for wanting to do that, I support, so.
I mean, it's kind of like individual learning plans, right? I mean, her individual learning plan is
Exactly.
getting her done in 3 years versus
That's-
mine might take 6.
That's exactly correct.
Oh,
I just have a technical question, because I've just not been a part of this before, but, so what would that look like if for some reason she was really struggling? I mean, if she was really struggling with that, but didn't come to you and say, I don't wanna do this anymore, I mean, what would the school be able to do?
So my answer to that is she still has to meet graduation requirements, and it would be, intervention for her would be no different than, she is taking those classes on her own from a different vendor, then that's sort of between them. But if she's, let's say, taking geometry She's being placed initially in geometry instead of algebra, and she's struggling with that, we would address it just like any, we're not that used to enrichment programming, we're more used to, those kids that are struggling and need remediation, those kind of interventions, and so this plan is a pretty solid enrichment program that also speeds her progression through high school, getting the credits, so. I don't see any issues with it right now, and if there are issues that come up, we will deal with those, and we'll make sure that they are policy driven. We're not, I mean, I can't, I'm not my own boss, I have to answer to the state and what their requirements are, and I certainly want her to be prepared, so. And I know her mom does too.
Yeah.
So I'm really not.
Well, no, like I said, it was just a technical question.
Yeah, that's a good question. We're not really that used to those kinds of enrichment programs, so it'll be the first one I've ever done that's quite like that, so.
Right, it looked pretty rigorous, so.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none is an action item, so I just need to hear a motion.
I would move for approval.
Second.
Kelly made the motion and Tony seconded. All those opposed, say aye. Hearing none, motion passed. Okay, next item then is a reopening plan.
Initially, when it was adopted and approved, both the county and the board, the 29th of June, the executive order from the governor has been changed. It's now up to individual counties and how to do that. And so would propose that we move that back to June 15th. To start, we talked and met with the coaches and our custodians today, and had the Wabunsee County Health Department in to help with appropriate sanitization and questions about everything. Masks, gloves, social distancing, this, that, what's it look like, all those things. And then we have developed a plan that shows what we are going to do when, what weeks. We've got the checklist that is from the Kansas State High School Activities Association that has questions, and we've added, according to the county, loss of taste and smell should be another thing when they're getting precursors to come into the building. The other thing that we did is would like to have adopted a summer activities waiver. It's not too technical, but at the same time, it lets parents and students in the district have the situation that there is some things as far as risk, and that's something that they would choose to do and be involved in. If they do, then if they don't sign it, they can't participate. The workouts are voluntary, and we do have, like I said, the plan that goes through everything in phases and what we're going to do. So, as you guys know, and I've been trying to keep you informed about what others are doing, when and where. Ours does not include a moratorium for the other schools that started earlier than us. And I get it. Coaches are anxious, the kids are anxious, parents are anxious, and so people want to get going. But, I look to what Kansas State, the Big 12, Pac-12 or Pac-10 or whatever it is, the Big 10 and other universities, they're struggling with the same issue. What do? And how do they do it? And they have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars riding on this season, and we better make sure it's right. And so for us individually, I have thoughts on it individually. And as individuals, we've always said to our kids and our people, do what you want to do. It's your freedom. Whatever you want to do, what can you do? But for the district, we want it to be what the district chooses for us to do as we move forward. And so the importance of that. And I talked already about the fact that KSDE or KASB legal and their conversations with us, and we've worked through that, I think, and think that that is something that is out there, and hopefully a new type of scenario with release of liability for educational institutions will be somewhat coming. The other thing is the other guidance, just to be quite frank, we're not going to get it till July 10th. And so, in meeting with Ray this morning from the Muncie County Health Department, he's going, keep asking me questions, but I can't give you a lot of guidance. So,
I'm sorry, the other guidance from where?
he is from Muncie County,
No, where are we getting other guidance from on July 10th?
oh, from the state,
Okay.
KSDE.
Oh, yes, about their
Yeah.
reopening for
Yeah.
the fall.
Reopening and logistics and all those kind of things. So, so I think that, you know, from the standpoint, the first thing is action about the reopening plan to the 15th. And with our coaches and stuff and talking to them, it's going to be difficult. Let's say you go, no, we're ready to go tomorrow. They say, we're not ready. They can get stuff ready. We do have the custodial piece of that too with it, but, you know, would like to have that move forward with that as a portion of that. And then talk some about the fall. You know, we've started discussing what that would look like. We want to be face-to-face. We know it's important. And at the end of each spectrum, there's those that if you don't have my kid in a bubble wrap, and that, I'm not sending them. And on the other end of the spectrum is, what are we doing? This is stupid. Let's get going. And so somewhere in between, with the safety and security of our kids, which is our responsibility, and making sure that we're ready to go. And so with that, then, we've secured training on July 27th, and I've talked to Bobby as the lead negotiator for the district, that we would trade those days out as in-service days on the calendar. So it wouldn't be a big change in contract and all that other stuff we get caught up in. And the contract actually is July 1st, is when the contracts start. Even though we don't have one, it's a continual contract for our teachers. So July 1st, so we're okay with that. And then the 27th, we would have the technology piece. So if we do have to go virtual, or something happens and we have to quarantine, or something happens, we have to close a building, whatever it is, we're ready to go virtually. This is the platforms, here's how you do it. The second piece of it is then Greenbush would come in and teach us and teach our teachers how to do curriculum virtually, as well as it will help with the curriculum, because we're going to be talking about the standards and competency-based, which we need to be doing anyway, which leads back to the early graduation, all those kind of things. So it isn't that, let's say we don't go virtual or whatever, we may start, no, we did not. It's that important with curriculum, also with the assessment piece and how it's instructed. And so we'll do that for 2 days. And then on the fourth day, we'll have the leader and me come in and do trainings on social emotional learning resources and revolve around that. You're responsible for your own destiny. How does this work? If it is virtual, what do you do? Those kind of things, and have those discussions. So we're ready to hit the ground with whatever happens. And again, we're planning to go face-to-face. That's what we want to do. So, there you go.
Well, I'll start by the last meeting, and we approved to June 29th. I mean, that was an excellent proactive decision based on the information we had at hand.
Mhm.
Things changed, we came back to the table, put in a new plan, we're looking forward to it, and that's good. I mean, we have some issues with custodial staffing and keeping our facilities clean. I mean, I think I read in the reopening plan that it's important for our kids, through the Leader in Me program, to be in charge of their own destiny. Clean up after yourself, clean yourself, organize yourself. Do not wait for somebody else to do it for you, but actually take control of the sanitizing process and do it.
Mhm.
I think those are all good things that we can train them on and probably gonna have to have their help, with the lack of staffing at this point, but. Any other discussion, communication?
Just appreciate that, I mean, I know that trying to think about and think through it changes in every day. So, you know, what we thought was the right thing to do, and we think this is now the right thing to do, and 4 weeks from now, we may think something else is the right thing to do. So I just think that it's a constant changing, and so I think it's just hard for some people to understand that sometimes, because they don't understand the full picture of what goes into the planning of what you think is a simple thing, getting kids together to work out or getting a team together to do something. It's not as simple as you may think that it is. So there's a lot of factors that have to go into it.
In our effort to communicate and be more transparent with the public on our reopening plan, I mean, we were about first to market with a reopening plan, if I read all that correctly.
Right,
and things changed. Now, were other schools able to adopt a different program before we? Well, sure. Whether it's a better plan or a worse plan, well, that's open for anybody's discussion, but we had to get back in front of the board. You did want it to be a board discussion, and here's a board meeting. So 2 weeks or whatever it is, if that's going to set our kids behind that far, this is more than sports. This is more than their ability to compete in fall sports here that's at hand. So I think it's a good decision of what we have now.
It's also been week to week. I had that discussion with a parent over the weekend. Brad's hands have been tied. It's been week to week. I mean, you're right. Last month, we couldn't have done this. It's been, and each week, something new comes out. Who knows what next, just week to week. We don't know what next Monday is gonna be, what's gonna be said. I mean, so it's, yeah, I think.
Thank you for the time and effort it took to put into it again.
Sure. Thank you. And you know, and the true leader of me says, start with the end in mind. The end in mind is, we want to be playing in August. And to do that, we may have to wait. And that's what, I mean, you look at everything, those universities and colleges, and that's what they talk about. You know, is don't mess it up now for a few sprints or a few this, when we got this on the other end, you know, and so.
I mean, we were the only local county that had a hotspot.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
And one other thing I love about our plan is that we are providing transportation for the kids. I don't believe any other school is providing that.
They are.
So that's kind of a big deal, especially as rural as we are and as spread out as we are. Giving all kids an equal opportunity to come and be a part of our summer programs is important. So if it took 2 extra weeks to get the logistics of that figured out, that was worth it. If no more discussion, I believe I need a motion.
We're
I
gonna
need
ask
for
a question,
So-
quick.
Go ahead,
I
Jim.
assume we're gonna be, will we be voting on the waivers as well?
Yes. The reopening plan as submitted. Yes, sir.
Not the waiver separate. Is that what
Nope.
you're asking, the waiver separate?
Okay,
It's part of the reopening
Right.
plan.
I move for approval.
okay, so the plan would be to use the waivers for next,
Yes.
yeah, okay, I just wanted to clarify.
So there is a motion. Kelly made the motion to approve the reopening plan as submitted, and Tony seconded it.
I second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all of those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, motion carried.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next then is budget transfers.
Just the fact that we've got, and we're working through that, and we every day have going through the end here. But anyway, it has to be approved by the board, that's a statute. And so we will have those available at the July 13th board meeting. since they're June expenditures, which is normal. And then we hope to be able to move those things accordingly. Initially thought we may have a little extra to put in some other stuff, but it doesn't look like that. And so we're doing everything we can to ensure staying with the statutory requirements, but moving the funds where they need to be moved, which then is a transfer. And so we'll be taking care of those and getting you that information on those transfers.
So it's not an action item tonight?
Just that, no, that shouldn't be, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion around that? Okay. Hearing none then, let's move on to the next item, which is propane bids.
Just FYI, we got a phone call from Farrell Gas. The lady that bid initially no longer works for Farrell Gas. They can't honor the bid, contacted the Kansas Association of School Boards legally, and I told the guy when he called, I don't know if it's legally binding, is it? And I'm surely you've checked with your lawyers, right? Well, I'd hope so. Well, me too, but, basically it's not a binding agreement, even though the board has approved it. So with that being said, the next best thing, because he said, well, we'll give it to you for 90. No, it needs to go back out. And so we have resent out, and the low bid is 89 cents from Ag Partners in Seneca. So we approved going with that.
Cool.
But the Alma Co-op was 92 cents, correct?
92, that is correct.
I mean, personally, at 3 cents a gallon on 30,000 gallons, I would just as soon leave our business local. And that would be my feedback is let's go with the local provider and spend the extra $900 to do that.
I had the exact same thought.
Any other? Kelly? Jim?
No, I agree with that sentiment.
So then I'll make that motion. I move to approve Alma Co-op's propane bid of 92 cents.
Second.
Tony
Jim,
seconded
let
it.
Jim- let Jim
Okay.
second.
Jim seconded it. Sorry.
That's right.
All those in favor, all those opposed, say aye. Motion carried.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep.
And I'll make sure that for 92 cents, we get every vote.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
He's
my.
considered a little,
Yeah,
Good one.
darn right.
Hey.
Maybe they could talk to everybody.
We take care of you, you take care of us.
a little asterisk on that.
Exactly, scratch each other's back.
That full service pump.
Exactly.
Right. Every time you fill someone's tank.
Yeah, proud supporter.
And down at the co-op too, or down at the mill.
Yeah, exactly. Get Bubba on board.
Yeah.
All right, next item is a school resource officer grant.
Information item, and just to let you know, and I'm really happy, Sheriff Rob did a great job getting us the monies that are available for that. And so the grant itself, we discussed a little bit before, and we don't have to accept the grant, but I think that is in the best interest of our district to do it. We have more area to cover than Mission Valley. We were only one of 3 school districts that actually got more than funding for more than one, us, Wichita, and one other district. So it's huge, I mean, huge. And so for the 15,000 though, that's the issue. And so for us, I guess when we go through things and budgetarily, we may look to use contingency reserve. And I know that that's for a rainy day, it's pouring. And so it's, we got 200 and some thousand in there, 205, I believe. Something.
225.
Yeah, 225 to 205, something in there. And so 15 grand a year for 4 years. And hopefully with a bond passing or some other things, we wouldn't have to continue to dip into that. But this first year, we may, when we get through it, we'll be looking at it. We'll try to use that risk, we'll try to use federal funds, we'll try to use whatever, but it may come down that we have to use all or part out of contingency. So I just want to be upfront with you about that. And I really want us doing it. I think it's important for us as a district. I think it sets a good example. I think that it could be another really positive thing for our schools, set us apart, so.
I've seen SROs that are utilized within their schools, and it's always, most often, a positive experience for kids, so.
Will we have any feedback on who the actual hire is?
I haven't talked to Rob about that. He's got several candidates he said that he's got looking at, and I don't know much more than that, but I can ask.
I mean, I guess I love the program, so I am in no way trying to throw shade. I'm just saying if you or our leadership group could at least be involved in the hiring process, because you're gonna have to work with them, they're gonna be with our kids. We know what the right fit would be for our environment and what we're looking for. I believe Rob would welcome that type of feedback, I would think.
Yeah.
So,
I did see a comment, I think when it was posted on, was it Facebook?
Yes.
That one person asked, could they please be trained in social emotional, aspects since they're working with kids? And I would second that agreement, even if they haven't necessarily had training, could they be part of those trainings? Just because they are working with kids, we are dealing with a unique situation in our time right now that's going to affect a lot of kids when they come back, socially and emotionally.
And that's where,
you go back to what Tony said earlier about the custodial staff.
Yes.
And I believe that they need to be a part of the Leader in Me program, no different than any other employee that we would have as our group.
It's just county's employee. And then they go to SRO school training for a week and stuff, but they're on top of it. And so working in conjunction with us, with Leader and Me, with Emily Henderson, the school liaison, and Crosswinds and everything, be really important.
I think it'd be such a great aspect to kids.
Amen.
It's good.
And just like you said, the way of the world right now, I mean, what you see on TV and everything else, and kids trying to deal and process through that, to have a positive role model would be huge.
Could they be part of the new staff training? the
Yeah,
Leader name?
That's a
So,
great point.
Any further discussion around that?
And it's just information now, so, but if move forward with that and put it on July, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Next then is our insurance renewal.
We've received quotes both from Copeland Insurance, which they outsource, or I don't know the exact terminology in insurance. Okay, and as far as them with EMC, because our situation, and if you guys have questions, we've got CBiz on the lines too. But Copeland Insurance, EMC is the person that actually would be writing the policy. There's used to be EMC, and then when we had CBiz, they had Wright Insurance. Wright, WRIGHT, is not doing it anymore, so that's just EMC. And now Kansas Association of School Boards with CBiz has created a pool, much like Greenbush Health Insurance pool, that they would be utilizing. And they have also then bid, and then the pool take that on. There's some, quote, opportunities to where they would have to build their funds up and reserves, and they've taken the necessary steps to ensure that that would happen. And with secondary insurances and et cetera, with Lloyd's of London, with Everest, with Travelers, with other groups, to ensure that there is a layer of safety included in that, in the pool piece. In other words, if it was, a cap of $10 million on property for all the entire pool, and the 20-some to 30 to 50 school districts that are getting in the pool, and somebody wiped out, and it took it all for the 10 million, then what? Well, then they've already got a layer in here for secondary to ensure that that will be taken care of. Long story short, the other thing that is different in comparisons, the property deductible for the CBIZ is $5,000. For EMC, the AOP is $10,000. The wind hail for the CBIZ, the KSB group pool is 25, or excuse me, for the pool group is 5,000. For EMC, it's 25,000 for wind hail. The cost difference is $32,000 difference to go with EMC Copeland versus the KSB CBIZ group, the Kansas Educational Risk Management Pool.
So the deductibles are less and the premium's cheaper to go with Copeland than.
No.
Okay.
To go with CBIZ KSB, the pool, versus Copeland. Copeland's is EMC came back at 130. Well, that included their workman's comp in that too. Their bid was 125, 148, but that included their workman's comp, which was 18,000, which actually can be 13,000. So it actually be 12,000. Actually, we could get it down to 12,000 with a different company, which I said that yes, we would like to do that. It's the same coverage, it's just less money, and so that's the 113,148.
So that pool works comparable to special ed, that type of situation where we.
It's very comparable to Greenbush with health insurance.
Health insurance.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Get your numbers.
And hopefully, and we've been, our renewal piece of it is, we've had low numbers to come back to create where ours is going up, which has been very good on our claims. So we're thankfully been able to do that very well and helped us save. But I would recommend, going with the group.
Okay.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, how are you? Brad, you're doing a great job. You should be sitting in my seat.
We get a discount for that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you guys for having us today. Kind of to piggyback on what Brad said a little bit, KSB had endorsed the right specialty program for much of the last decade. And then in December, we were notified that right specialty was leaving the state of Kansas. Not specifically because of losses in Kansas, but sure in the marketplace is certainly hard across the country.
you're recommending?
I am
Brad, could you run the total premium again?
for, which ones?
For KSB?
74,362. And we would, quote, still be local with the workman's comp piece. Because that, Eric, this is just for property casualty, correct?
Correct, we did not, bid on your work comp, but we know that you guys are that level also.
Yep.
And I will say that this is also, more of this is going, as opposed to the previous relationship with Wright Specialty, KSD, they're actually getting additional funding through this, service model with the pool, and that's what, I don't know, I mean, you know, Ross Banger with KSD, but they're saying that's really gonna help them keep the cost of their legal service low and their membership fee low. I know that's been really important to a lot of the districts that we've been working with, and this is helping, KSD also.
We expect to see a discount on our membership.
Okay. Any further discussion around that? If none, we need a motion.
I move for approval as outlined.
I move to accept the bid for KSBC bids.
Hey, Jim, you're too late, bud.
But you sure can.
Kelly and
What'd you
Callie.
say, sorry?
It's been moved and seconded. Callie seconded. All those opposed, say aye. Hearing none, motion passed.
Thank you all for having us again. I want to say it was really interesting listening to your meeting. Volunteer, and you're such, no, really, like, you're such good work for our school. I can't imagine the last 4, 5, 6 months been like for everybody. But
Yeah.
it's been a real treat to listen to. It has. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Okay. Next item then is the WHS science class, new science class approval.
I would defer.
I think I provided a lot of information about it if you had a chance to look at it. It's no additional cost to the district. She's teaching it. We did offer earth and space science that really we also didn't spend any extra money on, but it just didn't really fly as a science. I guess you'd call it a science elective. They still got a science credit for it, but just no takers on that. And so we felt like this was a great time to kind of do with science what we're doing with math, what we've always done with math, and those kids that maybe don't have the skills necessary to be successful as freshmen going into integrated science would, like we recommend kids take Algebra 1A and 1B instead of going straight in to a higher level math class. And so this would be very similar to that. It's just to brush up and specialize, recover some of those science skills. They still get one of their 3 required credits for it. The first year it's offered, it will probably be retroactive a little bit, meaning we might try to catch some of those kids that need some academic recovery. It will be part of our official academic recovery plan at the high school for science, which we have to have, I believe. KSD is requiring an academic recovery plan. But in the future, we hope that it will be a preventative measure. I mean, we don't want to offer something in response to someone failing. We want to get them where they need to be so that they can be successful in the first place. So it's called Unified Science. It's going to be very specialized in some skills that kids are typically have deficits in going into integrated science, especially the second semester of integrated science. So that's the purpose for it. It fits in nicely with our academic recovery, and it will mirror a lot of the same purpose as the math, the way we do math. this first year might be some sophomores and juniors in there, but in the future, it would be primarily a freshman class.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Jim?
So as I understand it, it would be based, sorry, it would be based on the recommendation of teachers in eighth grade level science?
Yeah,
Right,
at least in part. That, yeah, that may not, we will probably have some sort of a test that they're given, like a pre-test that might help to diagnose that as well. But it will go same as math, largely on the input and expertise of the junior high teachers. Because the reality is, if they have skill deficits in math, those translate very closely to skill deficits in science. So, especially second semester integrated science, because it's a lot of math. So
That
it'd be,
was going to be my follow-up question, if there would be consideration of potential testing to provide a fair field in terms of who would be designated leading that class, if you would. Another just very quick question. I assume that the teacher that would be providing this class has an opening in her schedule that she can provide this during.
yeah, as I said, she's literally trading one class for this class. We're no longer offering Earth and Space Science, and she's teaching this one instead. And we will use resources that we already have, as I stated in the summary. So there's no additional cost to the district in terms of resources, textbooks, or teacher salary. There's no additional cost. It's a trade-off. Trade one class for this one, which will have more purpose for what we need right now.
Would you like to make the motion, Jim?
Would you like me to make a motion, Justin? I'll move to approve the new courses proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tony? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the new class offering. All those opposed, say aye. Motion carried. All right, moving on then to personnel. Any discussion around personnel?
Other than, like you said, the art teacher needs to obtain a position not at Base or Linwood.
I do know, sorry.
Well, Bunsen,
Yeah.
on her resume.
I had already seen it, saw it at the beginning, but the bright side there is she has completely overreached her goal, right? She
Right, 'cause
reached
she ended
the
up
goal
here
even
instead of
better,
there.
even better than what she set out to do.
Okay. Is there a reason anybody have any issues with approving the employment changes as submitted? Okay. I so move to approve the employment and resignation as submitted.
Second.
I'm really sad about Bill.
I know.
Kids love him.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the employment and resignation as submitted. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Bill, dude.
Okay.
Tony seconded, right?
Yes. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, motion carried.
I know.
Have to
Board
take that
member.
with my kids.
Board member forum, Mr. Storms.
No, just showing her that new money that we discussed earlier, and you've already asked about the mileage reimbursements for the policy, if you haven't gotten those in or whatever.
They
So-
should have their checks.
Everybody should have their check and off we go.
Tony? Kelly? Kelly?
Nope.
Jim?
Not to rehash the whole conversation, but just to reiterate, Brad, you'll be contacting HTK on what you may be able to start doing in terms of reaching out to the public on the bond.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. No, I don't have anything else.
Don, are you on?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Yeah, I just wanna say good job tonight, everybody. I do, just for homework for everyone, think about this on your plan to have somebody do a assessment study. I kinda agree with what Tony's saying, they're spending money. Why don't we think about how we can do this? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
we're listening.
Okay, all right. Think about how these guys make their money. They're gonna make money off of us doing this. Let's figure out how we can do that. And I like what you said about using leader in me. That's what we are as a leader in me school. And I think we can really build and springboard off of this. And I think we can do a lot of this stuff in-house. It'll save us some money if we just think about what we're doing. If we're not in a room, we can turn the thermostats down, we can turn the lights off, just smart things like that. And also, implement LED lights. We've done that in the gyms, that's helped immensely. There's just a lot of things we can do, and I think we can do the same with our custodial. It's gonna be a slow process, it'll take a long time for us to get here, it'll take a while for us to get out of it. I don't think we need to panic, I think we need to just keep working right along. I think we've got a lot of stuff in place where it needs to be, thanks to a lot of hard work from all of our staff, and appreciate that. But just kudos to everybody, and keep your heads up, we're gonna get out of this, we'll be all right, and things will look up, and we can start getting our information out to people, and hopefully get it going.
Well said, Don, thank you.
I agree.
One question I have still is the tower. We've been asking about that over several meetings. I guess my only concern is that it is very important for the communication across the county for other people than us.
Mhm.
And I would hate to see something budgetarily happen that we wouldn't be able to afford to keep it up in service, and there be any lack of ability for anybody to communicate on there. So it's, with everything else going on, it's kind of easy to overlook that, but if that tower was to go down and issues were to happen, the people that are using it would be, and then the communities would be at risk. So I think we need to keep that on the forefront a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've emailed them 3 times and talked to them about where they're at, and they haven't, well, we're talking about it.
Who were you talking to?
Amy Terrapin.
Okay, I'll try to initiate some conversation there too, because I've asked some of the fire departments and that, I said, what are you guys doing here? And they haven't heard anything about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then need a motion to adjourn.
All right, so moved.
I'll second.
All those opposed, say aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad, Jan, Steve, thanks for all your